So today I want to talk about supersessionism, and as you can see right here, supersessionism, also called replacement theology. And as you know, if you've been watching my videos, I have been long railing against supersessionism and replacement theology. It is a Christian doctrine which asserts that the new covenant through Jesus Christ supersedes the old covenant, which is made exclusively with the Jewish people. Now, the Old Covenant was indeed made exclusively with the Jewish people. But as I have pointed out to you in the prophets and even the words of Paul, that the people of Israel broke that covenant. And because they broke that covenant, that's the reason why it remains of no effect. Now, but what they're saying is the Christians are saying that the Christian doctrine asserts that the new covenant is through Jesus Christ. But as I have also pointed out in many videos, that Israel's Messiah's name never was Jesus Christ. And I'm not going to go too long down this rabbit hole, but there is a rabbit hole you can go down, and that is right here. This is genealogyblogspot.com, the Sun King of Ireland. So all you have to do is, after you listen to this video, go and Google the Sun King of Ireland, and you'll see where Jesus Christ really came from. His name was Jesus Christos. So I'm only going to read a little bit of this here because I want to get back to the subject at hand. Supersessionism, how it came, where it came from. The Sun King of Ireland and Jesus. The Sun King of Ireland and Jesus. When Christianity preached Jesus as God, and of course, the apostles never preached anyone as God, because the name of God is of old Norse tradition. It's based in paganism and idolatry. It comes from Godin. You can look it up. It's so easy to do. I've already done it in previous videos. But anyway, I'll continue. It preached the most familiar name with its own deity to Druidism. In the ancient British tongue, Jesus had never assumed its Greek, Latin, or Hebrew form. Well, for one reason is because Jesus never was Hebrew to begin with, but remains the pure Druidic Yesu. All right. Iesa Krios also had his crown, but they did call him Jesus. The Druid crown was not of thorns, but of roses, regardless of the spelling and rendition. Isa, Essa, Iesa, Jesu, Issa. They put Jeshua, Ishwara, or Iesar, etc. Jesus. The archetype remains the same. Ireland had its own auto or indigenous solar religion, the religion of the sun god. Sun, as in the previous video, you noticed that the sun god is Baal. The solar religion and church. Theirs was the original solar church and theocracy, probably transported from the pre-Diluvian civilizations from which the ancient Irish, the Gaels, had come from. Now, just so you know, that the Irish, they are of Japheth through his son Gomer. And Gomer had two sons, at least two sons. One name was Riphath and the other one was Ashkenaz. So Ashkenaz is basically mainland Europe, and the Celts all over Europe, but but mostly a lot of them were in Ireland. And so this was not the Hebrew religion by any stretch of the imagination. It was, as this man says, pre-Diluvian. We'll look up Diluvian or look up pre-Diluvian and see what it means, shall we? Pre-flood. Now you must remember, when Jehovah, just before he spoke to Noah, he said he's going to destroy the whole earth because what everyone was doing was evil continually. So obviously, pre-flood religion was evil. Civilizations from which the ancient Irish Gaels had come, well, through Noah. The evidence from this exists, but it also has been cunningly concealed for centuries by the Roman officialdom, the Vatican. That Irish Church of the sun god Baal, Jesus, Jesus, the original Christianity, and indeed, they have a point, because the Jerusalem, the real church, real congregation in Jerusalem was not Christian. They were called Nazrim. As I've about 3 or 4 videos before, you can go check it out for yourself. And let's see, Abaris, the great druid, traveled eastward to the school of Master Pythagoras, which means I am the serpent, to bring what would later be referred to as Kabbalistic instructions to the Hellenes, the Greeks, while other acolytes and priests from Ireland set up sacred colleges of wisdom throughout the world. So, as you can see, this is the religion of the serpent. And so when did the Romans conquer the Druids so as to bring this religion into the Greek and Roman realm to the Hellenes? When? It was the year 43 BC. Is it BCE? Claudius, I believe it was Claudius, but I don't want to go too far here. When did Rome conquer? Oh, 43, the year 43. So it was, yeah, the year 43. Now, I want to go back here. All right? So now you know there's a dual religion here. One of them is fake and one of them is real. One of them practices paganism and uses pagan names, and the other one refuses to do so. Right? In Christianity, supersession is a theological view on the current status of the church in relation to the Jewish people and Judaism. So this is how they compare themselves to the Jews. So what does supersession mean? It holds that the Christian church has succeeded the Israelites as the definitive people of God. Well, if those of you who've been watching my videos, you'll notice that I very often point out that God was never the name of the Elohim of Israel. His name is Jehovah and shall always be. Or that the new covenant has replaced or superseded the Mosaic covenant. from the supersessionist point of view, just by continuing to exist outside the church, the Jews dissent. Well, that's interesting. So what they're saying is, just by the fact that the Jews will not go to their church, the Jews are in rebellion. Is that what they're saying? The fact that the Jews refuse to participate in the Christians' paganism is somehow rebellion. Okay? Now, it says, this view directly contrasts with the dual covenant theology, which holds that Mosaic covenant remains valid for the Jews. Now, how can it remain valid for the Jews if in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34, it says he's going to make a new covenant for the house of Israel and the house of Judah, which automatically destroys the new covenant for the Gentiles, the theory, for the church theory, as if somehow the church replaces Israel theory. Now, of course, like I said, you have all these people who go around and claim that the Old Testament is no longer valid and we don't read it, we reject it. I'll go into that in just a minute, but what I want to do here is to look up the word supersede. Let me see. We'll look up supersede, and then we're going to look up triumphalism. To supersede, to take the place of a person or thing previously in authority or use. To supplant. If you read the entirety of Romans 11, from where this particular verse comes from, you will see that in no way are the Jews superseded. Now, triumphalism. Excessive exaltation over one's success or achievements, especially used in a political context. The moment calls for humility and hard work, not triumphalism. Okay. So, as we see, triumphalism is not good. Unless, of course, it is triumph over judgment, as the book of James talks about, because mercy triumphs over judgment. But somehow the Christians seem to have lost that kind of triumphalism, you see. Supersessionism has formed a core tenet of the Christian churches for the majority of their existence. So you see right here that the churches, for the majority of their existence, claim they replaced Israel. When Paul, in the entire chapter of Romans 11, set out to prove that that was not true. But you Christians, you won't listen to Paul, even though he was the only apostle to the Gentiles. Christian traditions that have championed dual covenant theology, including the Roman Catholic, Reformed, and Methodist teaching of this doctrine, that was only after the Holocaust, you see. The Holocaust condemned Christianity as murderers, you see. Have taught that the moral law continues to stand. Subsequent to and because of the Holocaust, some mainstream Christian theologians and denominations have rejected supersessionism. But the problem is, just like idolatry, as I pointed out in my video yesterday, is rooted in all the Christian nations of the world, including the United States of America. There's no way of getting around supersessionism as your past, as your foundation. You are rooted in it, O Christian. And not only the Christian, but Islamic tradition views Islam as the final and most authentic expression of Abrahamic prophetic monotheism, superseding both the Jewish and Christian teaching. All right? So, let's see here. All right, here we go. Many Christian theologians saw the new covenant in Krios, not in the Moshiach, as a replacement of the Mosaic covenant. Historically, statements on behalf of the Roman Catholic Church have claimed its ecclesiastical structures to be a fulfillment and a replacement of Jewish ecclesiastical structures. See also Jerusalem as an allegory for the church. Really? So the New Jerusalem to the Catholics, to mainline Christianity, no longer exists. So what they're saying is, even though Yohanan said anyone who takes away from this book, his part will be taken away from what? It clearly says that in New Jerusalem, we'll go look there. New Jerusalem, let's look it up. And let's see what Yohanan says. Revelation 21, verse 2, starting in verse 2. Actually, we'll start in verse 9. And there came unto me one of the 7 messengers, which had the 7 vials full of the plagues of the 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come here, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. This is another one of those things that they insist that the bride of the Lamb is somehow the church, when in fact it is the New Jerusalem. Now he's going to describe the New Jerusalem. And he carried me away into the Spirit, into a great high mountain, and he showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of the sky from Jehovah, not from God, having the glory of Jehovah, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even as jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a great high wall, and had 12 gates. A high wall, and had 12 gates. All right. And at the gates 12 messengers, and the names written thereon were the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. All right? 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Now, does that mean the first gate is the Catholic Church, the second gate is the Methodist Church, the third gate is the Baptist Church? Is that what that means? Well, you'd be lying. And furthermore, what was it? Is it at the very end? I want to see if I can find it this way. Nope. Let's do this. Oh, it's in the next chapter. Revelation 22, verse 18. How convenient. Verse 18, for I testify unto every man that hears the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, Jehovah will add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, Jehovah shall take away his part out of the book of life and out of the holy city and from the things which are written in this book. So you want to say that Jerusalem is an allegory of the church. If you do this, you have automatically removed yourself out of the book of life and out of the holy city. That covers a lot of people, doesn't it? You see, I know the names of the tribes of Israel. And it's not the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church, the Baptist Church, the Calvinist, the Protestant. It's not them. It is. You can look it up. Names of the tribes of Israel. Let's do this. Let's see if I can, here we go. Even this is not correct. Why don't they have they missed something here. Well, they have Reuben, Simeon, Ephraim, Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Manasseh, and Benjamin. All right. Well, we do have 12 tribes here. All right. So they're missing one somehow. Because Joseph is as one tribe, even though he received a double portion. But anyway, that's not, I don't want to get too involved in this, but what I'm saying is that you can find the 12 tribes of Israel. And even right here, 12 tribes of Israel are referred to in the New Testament in the Gospels of Matthew 19:28, Luke 22:30. Yehoshua, not Jesus, anticipates that the king of Jehovah, his disciples, will sit on the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of the church. Is that what it says? And James 1 verse 1 addresses his audience as the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. All right. So they claim, here's what they claim. Paul's views on the Jews are complex. No, they're not. If you read the entire book of chapter of Romans 11, He makes everything crystal clear, but they don't want to read that because, you know why they don't want to read that? Because this is in that chapter, and they don't want to read that. Regarded as the first person to make the claim that by not accepting claims of, as they say, Jesus' divinity, known as high Christology, Jews disqualify themselves from salvation. Well, as I said before, Christianity did not come from the Messiah in Israel. It came from the outer reaches of the world, from the children of Japheth. They just practiced supersessionism with their religion, replaced the truth with a lie. Anyway, I think I'm done with this. So, triumphalism, I might get back to that. Now, let's have a look at this once again, as I've shown this picture before. Do you recognize this? Do you recognize this? Well, this is ecclesia, which represents the church, so to speak. She has a golden cup in her hand right here. In her right hand, it's filled with the wine of the wrath of fornication. She has a scepter in her hand, as if she's royalty and a crown upon her head. This is how the Roman ecclesia views itself in comparison to the Jew synagogue. She, the Jew synagogue, has Moses' staff in her hand, the serpent around her head covering her eyes, and the tablets of stone in her right hand. All right? Now, folks, I went over this particular scripture yesterday, and it says right here, howbeit we speak wisdom among them that are have reached the end, yet not the wisdom of this world. What is the wisdom of this world? Well, 1.4 billion you would qualify as the wisdom of this world. The 1.4 billion Christianity, nor the princes of this world that will come to nothing. But we speak the wisdom of Jehovah in a mystery, the hidden wisdom. So do you think that 1.4 or 1.8 billion people in this world have the hidden mystery of Jehovah ordained before this world unto our glory, none of which the princes of this world know? For if they would have known it, they would not have crucified the Moshiach of glory, or yes, of honor. Now, he says, eye has not seen, nor ear has heard, nor has entered the heart of man the things which Jehovah has prepared for them that love him. For Jehovah has revealed them unto us by his Spirit, for the Spirit searches everything. That means the Old Testament, as they say, which is really Moses and the prophets, and the words of the disciples and Yehoshua. Now, I want to go to Acts And I believe this is Paul. We'll go to Strong's Concordance. Yes, Paul's speaking to Agrippa. Having therefore, verse 22, obtained help from Jehovah, I continue unto this day, witnessing to both small and great, saying nothing other than those which the prophets and Moses did say should come. Where did Moses say it? He said there's going to be a man like me that's coming, and you shall hear him. And the prophets in Isaiah, where it says that his it talks about his suffering. And also in Isaiah, it talks about how he would rise from the dead and he would show light unto the people and to the Gentiles. But it says in Isaiah to bring all. Now, you know, when Paul was speaking to Agrippa, he had to be very careful with his words. So he said it would be a light unto the people of Israel and to the Gentiles, right? But what it was written was, myself, hold on, we'll just go there, all right? Actually, we'll just use this because I think I'm done here. Isaiah 49, verse 6. Strong's Concordance. And he said, it is a light thing that you should be my servant to do what? To stand up the rod and the staff of Jacob. To stand up the rod and the staff of Jacob. So what is this woman actually holding here, synagogue? The rod and the staff of Jacob. So it was not good enough for him to just hold up the rod and the staff of Jacob and do what? And return the preserved, to return and guard over, watch over Israel. That wasn't enough. But I will also give you for a light to the Gentiles, the Goy, that you should be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Oh, after. Oh, to the ends of the earth. Okay. So that means there would be a kind of an equal sharing of gifts. One, for Israel, would be to raise up the staff of Jacob again, to return all Israel, all 12 tribes, back to their homeland, and also be a light to the Gentiles. So what I'm saying is that Paul told Agrippa when he was being accused, he said he only preached out of the Moses and the prophets. Now, let's look at Luke 24, verse 27. And he said unto them, O fools, slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Should not Moshiach to have suffered these things and entered into his glory? And at the beginning, at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded unto them in all the scriptures of things concerning himself. So you think you're better than Yehoshua, the Moshiach, or you think you're better than Paul. You think you don't need the words of the prophets, and the reason why you don't like the words of the prophets because it talks about bringing back all Israel and restoring them and forgiving their sins too much, doesn't it? You can't have that, can you? Okay, I've gone over this. I've gone over that. So, dual covenant theology. I've gone over this. Now, so what I'm going to do is go over Romans 11. The one chapter in the one chapter in the epistles that you Christians absolutely cannot bear. Paul says, I say then, has Jehovah cast away his people? Jehovah forbid. But you say he did. In supersessionism, your religion, supersessionism, shows that you did. They say that the Christian church has succeeded the Israelites as the people of Jehovah, which means that Israel is no longer the people of Jehovah. You, the supersessionists, and it is your foundation, the point of view, just by continuing to exist outside the church, I'll show you right here, just by continuing to exist outside the church, the Jews dissent. Is that the reason why you attempted numerous times to wipe them off the face of the earth? If they existed outside the church, wipe them out. Commit pogroms and acts of the Holocaust. Isn't that where those pogroms and Holocaust came from? It came from supersessionism. The foundation of the Christian church. All right. I want to get back to ecclesia and synagogue. And I hope I don't miss it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to minus all of this and leave ecclesia and synagogue and Romans 11 so that I can remember to go over this and Great Babylon the Great. Let's see. All right. Now that I have everything together here so I don't miss anything. He says, for I too am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin. Jehovah has not cast away his people which he foreknew. But supersessionism claims he did. We have a problem, don't we? Don't you know what the scripture says about Eliah or Eliyahu? How he made intercession to Jehovah against Israel, saying, Adon, they have killed, or Adonai, they have killed the prophets and dig down your altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. Well, what was the answer of Jehovah to him? He said, I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. But you, Christians, you have. I have proven that in many of my videos. Baal, the sun god. Your Jesus is Baal, the sun god. He cast away all but 7,000 in Eliyahu's days. And the reason why he didn't cast out the 7,000 out of his book of life was because they did not bow the knee to Baal, like you Christians do every Sunday, to the circle god, the sun god, the halo god. Even so, then, at this present time, there is also a remnant according to the election of grace. But he's saying to the Romans, wait a minute, hold on. Just because Yehoshua said that there's going to be vengeance on that generation, that did not mean that he cast out the whole group of people of that generation who were Jews. Verse 7 says, what then? Israel has not attained, the nation of Israel as a whole has not obtained that which it seeks for, but the election has obtained it. And the rest were blinded. Okay, blinded. Let's have a look at this graven image that is on, or that used to be on Notre Dame, and that is on other cathedrals around Europe. So they have the serpent blinding, or partly blinding, synagogue. The rest were blinded. By who? Well, you Christians, you say Satan. But what did Paul say? As it is written, Jehovah gave them the spirit of slumber, eyes that could not see. So you Christians are essentially calling Jehovah, our Father in heaven, your Satan? See, you have to be careful what you do. You have to be careful what you say, because every word and every deed you're going to be held into account. You obviously have not read Romans 11. Otherwise, you would not have raised up this graven image on your cathedrals around the world. You would not have put that serpent around the head, covering the eyes of synagogue. You would not have done so if you would have read Romans 11. Eyes that could not see and ears that they should not hear today. Now David said, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. You know who else David said that about? He said that about the Gentiles too. And Paul reiterated it in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. When they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them like a woman in travail, and they shall not escape. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back. Now this word always is not forever. Why? Paul said so. It just means mutual irritation. That's it. Now, so the Gentiles will look at this and they will say, see, forever, ha ha ha, and then they will leave. They will not continue to read to their own detriment. I say then, have they, Israel, stumbled that they should fall? Jehovah forbid. But through their fall, through their false step, trespass. Now, why did King James put fall right here, deliberately making Paul contradict himself? Why did King James Version do this? You see, folks, you see how you've been fooled? You see how you've been deceived by all these versions of the Bible? This is the reason why you must search everything, as it is written in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Was it Colossians? I can't remember. I had it up there. But anyway. Had they stumbled that they should do what? Fall prostrate? No. See, we know the answer to that. Had they stumbled that they should fall prostrate? Jehovah forbid. Or it should be, no. The word is may. No, no, no. But rather, because of their false step, their trespass, their lapse, because of their sin, because of their slip up, deliverance is come to the Gentiles, for to provoke to jealousy. To provoke to jealousy. Now, if the false step and trespass of them be the riches of the world, the Gentile world obviously, and the diminishing, or their loss, being the riches of the Gentiles, and how much more their fullness? How much more their fullness? You see that word more? It's there. There's no mistaking it. Their fullness. I speak to you, Gentiles, because I am the apostle to the Gentiles, and I magnify my office, if by any means, if I may provoke those to jealousy which are of my flesh, and save any one of them. For if the rejection of them be the reconciling of the world, the Gentile world, what shall, see that? What shall be the receiving of them be but what? Life from the dead. Who killed them? Who butchered them in 70 AD or CE? Who butchered them? The Romans did. These people who Paul was talking to, they did it. Paul warned the Romans that Israel was going to receive life from the dead. Who killed them? who butchered them throughout all the pogroms the last 2,000 years, and who butchered them in the Holocaust. Christian nations that are rooted in Roman Christianity did this. What shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Do you believe that they will receive life from the dead? Your forefathers didn't, and your religion is rooted on the religion of your forefathers. So apparently you don't either, which is the reason why you can't get you Roman Christians to accept this truth. Because, why? Why will they be raised from the dead? Because if the first fruit is holy, that means if the Messiah is holy, then so is the lump. And if the root is holy, then so are all 12 branches. And if some of those branches were broken off, and obviously temporarily, and you being a wild olive tree, you were grafted in, on, at, by, with them, and partaking jointly to become partaking jointly of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. But you didn't want to partake jointly, did you? You said, this is what you said. You, the church, the ecclesia, you said that if the Jew, well, it's not here anymore. Let's see if I can remember it. If they did not join the church, then they are in, what do you call that, rebellion of some sort. And you thought it was your duty then to rub them out. Well, he says, boast not against the branches. But you didn't just boast against the branches, you murdered the branches. Oh, Christian. Because if you boast, you bear not the root, but the root bears you. You will say, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and you now stand by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. What is this? But high-mindedness. Putting on your cathedrals. This woman, whose ecclesia, a big crown of glory and a scepter in her hand with a golden cup, right? Because if Jehovah did not spare the natural branches at all, to spare and forbear also not you. What? He's going to do it to you too. He's going to cut you off. Look at the goodness and the severity of Jehovah on them which fell severity, but toward you goodness, if you continue in goodness. This is not continuing in goodness, and I'll show you why it's not. I'll show you why. And they also, before, abide, before, unbelief, shall be grafted in, for Jehovah is able to graft him in again. And as I pointed out in Ezekiel 39 and verses 22 onward, he says over and over and over again, multiple times, that he's going to save Israel, and then they, from that day and forward, they shall believe. So their salvation, the fact that he saves them, is going to cause them to believe, not the other way around. And of course, you Christians, you don't believe that. You can't believe that. You'll go to your dying grave refusing to believe that, because you don't believe either. But he's going to pull you Gentiles off of Israel, or pull Israel away from you Gentiles. The sucking leeches that you Gentiles have become upon Israel, and pull them away from you and put them back into their own land, and you're going to be exposed, you Gentiles. How? You're going to try to undermine. You're going to try to destroy the kingdom. You Christians are going to do this. You're going to fight against the Moshiach of Israel, calling him the Antichrist. This is what you're going to do. Because you insist that in the last days, a Jew is going to come up and make a covenant of peace with Israel, and he most certainly will, and you're going to call him the Antichrist. It comes out of your own mouth, and you will be judged out of your own mouth. You will come to fight against him, and you will lose. And you will lose. You will lose out on the new covenant because you refused to share in the new covenant jointly with the Jews. If you were cut out of the olive tree which is wild by nature and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these which are of the natural branches Israel be grafted into their own olive tree? Well, they're going to. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. You're going to try. You're going to try to stop them, but you're going to lose. For I would not, Roman brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits. Well, you are obviously still wise in your own conceits. That blindness, partial blindness, has happened to Israel until what? Until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And that is cross-reference with the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. It's in, I'll say this over and over again. Luke 21:24. All right, so what are we supposed to do? What did we learn yesterday and today? That we're supposed to search out everything, right? Okay. So, right here in Luke 21:24. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies. When was it compassed with armies? 67 to 74. By Titus and Vespasian. Then you know its desolation is near. Then that are which in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart, and let them not which are in the countries enter back into the rural areas. For these are the days of vengeance. Vengeance against who? Vengeance against that generation of Jews. So that all these things which are written might be fulfilled. But woe unto them with a child, and them which give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. What people? The people of Jerusalem in those days. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all the Gentiles. Yes, it happened. And Jerusalem will be trodden underfoot by the Gentiles. And it was. Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Then what? You won't listen. You won't read. You won't study. And after that, it's going to be distress upon the what? After that, distress upon the Gentiles. Now, I want you to look at this carefully, folks. All right? So, for Jerusalem, great distress in the Eretz and wrath upon this people. All right? Then after the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled, then what? Then there's going to be distress upon the Gentiles. But you won't listen. But you won't listen. I know you won't listen, because I've had these discussions with everyone. The only one who listens, the only one who believes that I have ever met is my own dad. And him and I believed this a long, long, long time ago. First came distress upon Jerusalem, then comes on the Jews, and then comes distress upon the Gentiles. When the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled, there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars upon the earth, distress upon the Gentiles. And you should know by now that the distress upon the Gentiles is around the corner, because 1948, Israel won its first war. That should have been your first sign. And in 1967, General Shlomo Goren fulfilled the final marker in Daniel 9. The call to rebuild Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince, Messiah the royalty. Not Messiah the suffering servant, Messiah the Prince. But you see, you have your own narrative that you got to forward, and you're not going to listen to that. 7 sevens. From the call to rebuild Jerusalem until Moshiach the Prince. The call was made June 7, 1967. 49 years later, it was summer of 2016 on the Roman calendar. And here comes a president who wanted to make sure that his legacy was sealed by being the one who brought peace to the Middle East. The peace plan of the century, it was a dud, and it became the Abraham Accords. You can read all about it. And it led to on Hanukkah, for the first time since Hanukkah became a day or time, for the very first time, the Arabs lit Hanukkah candles with the Jews on Hanukkah. And we have a marker in Haggai 18 verses 22 concerning Hanukkah as a time, a marker for the overthrowing of the Gentiles and for bringing all those begotten in Babylon out of Babylon. So, I will discuss Babylon in just a minute. I got to get through here real quickly. And so, all Israel shall be saved. Can you see it? There it is right there. Now you can sit here and you can say, that's the church. What does that word say? That's pas in Greek. Every Israelite shall be saved. Because it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away unholiness from Jacob. Written where? Well, we just read in Acts that Paul, when speaking to Agrippa, he said this. He spoke out of nothing but what was in Moses and the prophets. It came out of Moses and the prophets. For this is my covenant. What covenant? Jeremiah 31 verses 31 through 34, Hebrews 8 through 12. verses 8 through 12. This is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. Concerning the gospel, they, the Israelites, might be enemies for your sakes, O Roman. But concerning the election, they are the beloved for the patriarch's sakes. That would be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's sakes, they are the elect after all. Why? Because the gifts and the calling of Jehovah cannot be changed. You in times past have not believed, yet now you have obtained mercy because of their unbelief. But I accuse you, Gentiles, of refusing to believe. I am a witness to that fact, and my dad is a witness to it. There are two, that is enough to accuse you Gentiles today in this era of unbelief. Therefore, those of Israel that have not believed, you see, they will obtain mercy because you obtain mercy. They're going to obtain it while you are in your unbelief. And you will see, like I pointed out in Luke, and it will happen when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. So when you claim, all right, so okay, so cross-reference. Let's go over the whole thing, right? Let's cross-reference. So we see that once the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, their time is up. And distress is removed from Israel and falls upon the Gentiles, like we just learned in Luke 21. Here's what it says. And immediately after the tribulation of those days, that's after Israel's tribulation, that's when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. Shall the sun be darkened, and moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the sky, and all the tribes of the earth shall mourn. Wait a minute. It says kopto, to be cut off, to be smitten. Distress upon the Gentiles, as it says in the cross reference. When they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud of the sky with great power and great glory. And he will send his angels, his messengers, with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. Well, after the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, his elect are, by default, Israel, because we just read it here. Concerning the gospel, they might be enemies for your sakes, but concerning the election, they are the beloved for the Father's sakes, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because the gifts and calling of Jehovah cannot be changed. So that means when you cross-reference Matthew 24 and Luke 21, you have to read them together, folks. You have to read them together. Distress upon the Gentiles. Gentiles are going to be cut off. Paul said Israel's going to be raised from the dead. And you don't believe it. Which is why the tribulation upon the Gentiles, as written in Daniel 12, is coming. What is this tribulation upon the Gentiles? Let's see here. What is this tribulation upon ecclesia. Strong's Concordance. Yes, this tribulation will fall upon ecclesia. And there came unto me one of the seven angels, seven messengers, which had one of the seven vials, talk with me, saying, Come here, and I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute whore that sits upon many waters, with whom the kings, the multiple basileus of the earth, have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, into the desert, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet beast, filled with the names of blasphemy, slander. Yes, all the Christian kings slandered the Jews. Having 7 heads and 10 horns. I've talked about who the 7 heads and the 10 horns were. That's very easy. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand. Who is this woman? Well, the churches, they say they are this woman. Right here. She has a crown and jewels all on her head. She has a scepter in her hand, and she has a golden cup in her hand. So the churches have declared that they themselves are that woman. So you are judged by which comes out of your mouth. O churches, if the shoe fits, you must wear it. Full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, the abomination of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the Kodesh, and with the martyrs of Yehoshua. What? Wait a minute. These are two groups of people. This is one group. This is another group. This is those who believe in Yehoshua, and this is the Kodesh. It talks about the Kodesh in, in the last part of Daniel 2 and the last part of Daniel 7. And the Kodesh is always referred to as the Jews. And those kingdoms who committed fornication with ecclesia, we now know who that great whore is. It's ecclesia. It's the church. It's the Christian church. What are they going to do? These kingdoms will make war with the Lamb. Why? Because the Lamb is their Antichrist. And the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Master of masters and King of kings. And they that are with him are called chosen and faithful. Isaiah 14, verse 1. Jehovah will have compassion on Jacob once again. He will choose Israel and settle them into their own land. All right? Now the foreigners who will unite with the descendants of Jacob, those are the ones who are grafted in among the branches of Israel, not the ones who murdered the branches of Israel. All right, let's go look at another one. Jehovah Almighty says, my towns will again overflow with prosperity. Jehovah will again comfort Zion and choose Jerusalem. They are called chosen and faithful. So you can sit there with your replacement theology and delude yourself all you want to, but Paul has some words for you. Now, the kings in Rome, they were the ones who came after the working of Satan with lying wonders. And one of them, the Byzantines still use to this day, is the holy fire from heaven. You see, you can look it up. Byzantines being the Orthodox Church, but they're all Catholics, with all deceivable and of unrighteousness in them that perish, because what? They did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. What is the truth? That's the truth. And for that reason they committed murders. They murdered the Jews, generation after generation after generation. For that reason, they murdered at least 6 million Jews, probably 10 million in the Holocaust, and according to an acquaintance of mine that I think has passed away, a Russian Jew who lived in Israel. He made the claim that the Russians murdered 20 million Jews. They receive not the love of the truth, that all Israel shall be saved, so that they might be saved. You see, the ones of the Gentiles who did receive the love of the truth, they are going to be joined with them and unite with the descendants of Israel. They're going to be grafted in. But the others, many will die. Very few men left, according to Isaiah 24. And the rest of the Gentiles, the ones who are not grafted in, the ones who do not cleave to the house of Jacob, they're going to be forced to look for all Israelites and bring them back into their own land. The house of Israel shall possess the Gentiles in the land of Jehovah for servants and handmaids, and they will make them captives whose captives they were. And they shall rule over their oppressors. So now the shoe is going to be on the other foot. This witch, this prostitute, this horrible woman, who the church describes themselves accurately as. You see, if the shoe fits, wear it. You are judged what comes out of your mouth. So if you claim that this is what ecclesia is, and you make a graven image in exact detail of the great whore that is written about in the book of Revelation, then you must wear it. So this woman is going to be struck down, and this woman is going to be raised up. And this woman who held this woman in slavery and captivity will now be held by this woman in slavery and captivity. In other words, this woman will become this woman's slave. Zion shall rise, this woman shall fall. You see, you Christians, you did not have to do this. You did not have to create this image. But you did. And now you're going to be judged by it. You could have been one of those Gentiles, like Irene Good, the lady in red, who was forced to trade her body for the lives of Jews. Well, Gentiles like that will be grafted in among the branches of Israel. The Rahabs, the Ruths, those will be grafted in. The rest will have to be servants. Now, you can believe your lie all you want to, but Paul says this: because they received not the love of the truth that they might be saved, and for this reason Jehovah shall send them strong delusion, so that they should believe a lie, and you do, that they all might be damned, who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. What kind of unrighteousness did you have pleasure in? The very unrighteousness Paul warned about in Romans 11. When he says, boast not against the branches. But you had pleasure in that unrighteousness. You loved doing that. You loved beating the Jew down. You loved stomping him in the ground. You loved throwing him in the ovens. And many of you still chant it out loud, and the rest of you in your hearts to this day. Well, that day has come to an end. It's over. As for me, who knows what my genealogy is? It's all over the place. But I tell you where I stand. In fact, I'll show you where I stand. I stand with the people of Israel. I stand with the apostles of Israel. I stand with Yehoshua, the Moshiach of Israel. And most of all, I stand with Jehovah, the Elohim of Israel.